It is preview season here on Armchair Analysis, and today we are talking about the Syracuse Orange. Fran Brown comes in year number 2 with room for improvement, even though they went 10-3. That's one of the best years they've had in recent history. They are looking for more as they go forward, and Fran Brown is certainly the guy for the job. Can 2025 be the year that they take another step forward, or should we expect some regression? We'll talk about all that and more here with this team in 2025 here in this episode again of Armchair Analysis. Welcome in. It's July 25th, 2025. It's a little late. This video is going to be out a little late, and I apologize. Just a busy last couple of weeks. I'm actually getting ready to move here in a few weeks, and things are kind of picking up on that. So, with that said, it makes it a little bit more difficult to kind of keep a proper schedule as much as I would like to. So, my apologies, but we are still here, and we're not missing another day until we get to the end of preview season, which will be, as a matter of fact, the weekend that I move. We're only a couple weeks away from the end of this whole thing. So thank you all for being here. Thank you guys for the support. Again, we've got just under a week now until the end of the month, but we're still trying to hit 150 subscribers. We're at 139 as of me recording this video. 11. I think we can do 11 in the span of 6 days. Thank you guys for tuning in. If you're new around here, again, leave a like, subscribe, comment down below. I don't want to waste any more of your time with stuff like that. Let's talk about what you're here for, and that's the Syracuse Orange. This team last year went 10-3, 5-3 in ACC play. They scored 34 points per game. That was 21st in college football, but they allowed 29.2. That was 96th in college football, and that's going to be the focus of today, I think, for the majority of this video. Turnover margin was plus 0.2. That's 51st in college football. They did pretty well there, at least taking care of the football. A lot of that goes to Kyle McCord. A lot of credit goes to him for what they could do last year. This was a 43rd ranked recruiting class with a 45th overall portal class, bringing in 16 commitments. There's two big ones here, and it goes between Steve Angeli and Ricky Collins. Those are the two quarterbacks that we're expecting to do battle here in the later portion of the fall and as we hit that week 1 game against Tennessee. This is probably one of the more consequential battles in the ACC right now at the quarterback position. Why is that the case? Well, it's because we really don't know what either of these guys are. We've never seen either of them play meaningful snaps. Steve Angeli's had a little bit more experience, and I think that gives him an edge. But at the same time, Ricky Collins can do a lot more himself, especially with his legs. It's going to be very interesting to watch how that whole process comes together. Of course, the offense is going to be led by Jeff Nixon and Michael Johnson, two co-offensive coordinators. And they're looking to not only replace that, but two-time all-conference, if I'm not mistaken. Make sure I'm not completely messing that up. Yeah, two-time all-ACC running back, LaQuint Allen, is gone. And now they have to figure out who's going to take over that role. It looks like it's going to be Yassine Willis. I would expect it to be Yassine Willis. There's also Will Nixon. He's going to probably get some considerable playing time. I don't know if anybody's going to get a majority of snaps. I think it might sit somewhere in the realm of maybe 60% to Willis and 40% to the others. But again, I don't know. I don't know how their expectation is to plan it out. I don't have the inside access. This is what I foresee. At wide receiver, they got a handful of interesting players that they could put in here. Darrell Gill Jr., Justice Ross Simmons, Emmanuel Ross, Amari Hatcher. Those four are guys that I'm expecting to get a considerable amount, but they also have two other transfer wide receivers who could make some interesting headway as well. Tyshawn Russell comes over from South Carolina. Not sure how much he's going to impact, but I can almost guarantee you that Jonte Cook is going to be a starter, a transfer coming over from Washington. I think Jonte Cook is going to get a considerable amount of playing time this year. And then at tight end, they got a former quarterback for this team and former quarterback at the University of Michigan. That's Dan Villari, who you guys are familiar with if you're Syracuse. As his tight end, he's been playing that position for the last, I think, 2 seasons now, coming into what will be his final year. And I think that he's kind of figuring things out. Again, he didn't get used a lot last year, at least not in the way that I thought kind of that he would. I want to double check and make sure that I'm not like completely, but yeah, 12 catches for 29 yards and a touchdown. I mean, he just did not really, that was 12 rushes for 29 yards. He had 6 receptions for 57 yards. He's really kind of a gadget player, comes in and will play like a wildcat quarterback, especially in goal to go situations when they're trying to get the ball across, really inside the 5. That's kind of his wheelhouse. That's been his wheelhouse in really his entire career. What will they use him? Will he get a little bit more run as a tight end? I don't know. I don't think so. I think that we've seen kind of the extent of what he will be. And I don't have reason to believe I don't have reason to believe that's going to change. I want to make sure that I'm not missing something, but I'm not. I don't think that's going to go any differently. The team returns 2 starters from last year's offensive line, brings in 0 transfers. It's all on them, and I think that's fine because this is a team that was 27th overall in PFF grade in the Power 4 for pass blocking. That was 71.7 grade. Run block grade was 64.3. That was 34th, right at the halfway mark of the Power 4. I think they did just fine on the offensive line. I don't think that's really the issue. What I'm most concerned about is the lack of experience and the lack of proven production coming back to this offense. And it's going to start at the quarterback position. I've already said that. But the running back position, is Yassine Willis the guy? Will Will Nixon make plays? Who can they trust to be the playmaker or the kind of the heart and soul of the offense? And the answer for you that I have is I don't know. I don't. It would be reckless to sit here and say that this Syracuse offense is going to be able to match what they did last year. 34 points per game is I don't want to say it's an outstanding number because it feels like it's more and more common anymore. But it's a big mark to hit, especially after in just year 1 with the amount of transfers and change that they had last year. But they don't have that star running back. They don't have not a round 1, but an NFL caliber quarterback at the helm, at least not that we've seen. So there's a lot of question marks to be asked about this offense. Let's shift to the other side, the defense. Elijah Robinson, Robert Wright, those are the 2 co-defensive coordinators. Of course, Fran Brown has a big play in this. He was a corners coach, of course, at the University of Georgia. Really solid in the recruiting category, though, is kind of where he was mostly known for. But I have a feeling that there's some things that will improve this year, but it's going to take more than just some improvement. It's going to take a lot of improvement. They allowed 6.5 yards per play last year. That is 122nd in college football. It's not suitable to do that. And to be honest, in their last 3, if I'm not mistaken, I need to double check the number here. Yeah, their last 3 games, they allowed 8 yards per play. And that includes games against UConn, Miami, Florida, and Washington State. By the way, I don't believe Washington State had John Mateer in that Holiday Bowl game. So, yeah, that's something that I think really needs to hit differently. They allow, I think I said this already, but 5 yards per rush as well. It just needs to change. And it's got to change really at the line of scrimmage. They did not get a lot of pressure last year, and they're not returning a lot of it either. Didn't force a ton of turnovers. They forced 19, which is good. It's still over 1 per game. Or turnover opportunities. They created 19 turnover opportunities. For those who don't know, interceptions, forced fumbles, turnover opportunities. They creating that, I think, is okay, but especially with the quarterbacks taking care of the ball. But if they struggle in that department early in the year, how can the defense pick up the weight and carry some of it? The answer is I don't know. They made a concerted effort to kind of go after the defensive line specifically. They bring in David Reese from Cal. They're expecting a lot out of him. And even Chris Thomas coming over from Marshall, they're really excited about what he can bring to that centerpiece of the defensive line. Beyond that, though, there's not a lot returning. As a matter of fact, they have only 3 returning starters, 2 of which are in the secondary. Deuce Chestnut, Devin Grant. Bring back Derek McDonald at linebacker as well. We'll see how that can progress as well. But this is a team that really needs the improvement on defense, especially if they want to continue to improve and improve in the record department. They need a considerable improvement defensively because I don't think the offense can do what they did last year. There were only 2 games where they did not allow more than 20 points. 2 games. One of those was a 42-14 win over Holy Cross. And the other one was a 24-17 win over NC State on the road after the Grayson McCall injury. This team could not stop a nosebleed last year. It just did not happen. In the final 3 games, like I said, they allowed... Actually, let's go back to really every game after that NC State game. They allowed 41, 31, 37, 25, 24, 38, and 35 to include the bowl game. That is not good enough. It's just not, because there are some really good offenses in this ACC this year, and they play a good portion of them. They have a tough schedule. How can they move forward? I think Deuce Chestnut has to become a leader, a true leader in this defense. He brings back 62 tackles from last year. Devin Grant forced 3 fumbles last year. That's a leader in that category. Devin Grant also had 8 tackles for loss. Really, really solid work in the backfield from a corner. Or the nickel position, I should say. Multiple players only had 1 interception. There's only 1 player who had 2 last year. He does not return. And then Dennis Hawkes Jr. is the returning leader in sacks with 2.5 from last season. There's just a lot of improvement that is, I think, necessary. And guys that need to step up. I've already mentioned some names to watch, with Jonte Cook, Tyshawn Russell, Ricky Collins, along with Steve Angeli. How do those guys kind of import themselves into this offense? How does that offense become close to what it was last year? Or can they try to replicate what they did last year? We'll see. I'm excited for the quarterback battle. I think it's a big deal, and I don't think it's over. I think that I'm guilty. I certainly, prior to digging in a little bit deeper, I thought that this was going to be kind of a Steve Angeli's job and nobody else is touching it. And I don't know that I fully think that's true anymore. I don't know that it's false, but I don't buy into it being 100% true. The defense, it's a must improve. It must improve. If you give up the yardage you gave up, if you do what you did last year with the schedule you have this year, you are going to give up probably 30-plus points per game. That's bold to say, but, I mean, look, they gave up 29.2 this year. Or last year, in a much lighter ACC and a much lighter schedule. It's not hyperbole. This is a serious issue for this team going forward. If they're going to improve, if they're going to continue or even replicate a 10-win season, it's going to start on that side of the football. I've said enough about this schedule. Let's go ahead and take a look at it. And it does not start off light. I mean, you get that neutral site game against Tennessee. That's going to be down in Atlanta on Saturday. Leading into the Sunday game for South Carolina and Virginia Tech. This is going to set the tone right away, because if you go out there and you give up 30-plus points to Joey Aguilar in Tennessee, it's going to say a lot more about Syracuse than it will about Tennessee. And I'm not dogging Tennessee. I actually have come around a lot more than people think about this team. However, this is a case of Tennessee is going to be trying to figure out a lot of different things, including playmakers, who's going to make things happen for this offense, and what exactly Joey Aguilar can be as a starting quarterback of an SEC program. This is an interesting first game because it's setting the tone for the year defensively. UConn and Colgate, which aren't going to be that bad, but then you go on the road to Clemson. That's your second Power 4 game, and that's your first conference game. Okay, tough. Then you come back home and play Duke. Okay. Then you go on the road to SMU. You play Pitt after a bye week, but you still play Pitt, who's going to be in the middle of their season. And Holstein is hopefully going to be back and fully in the mix at this point, and not just I don't want to say fully in the mix. He's going to be in the mix. He's going to be the starter. What I'm saying is, obviously coming off the ACL injury last year, will he be back to 100% at the beginning of the year, or will it take a few weeks? At this point, he's going to be 100%, at least 100% at the knee. At Georgia Tech, that's not going to be light. North Carolina, that's not going to be easy. North Carolina might be able to throw the ball all over the yard on these guys the more I look into it. Miami, Notre Dame, both on the road, and then Boston College at the end of the year. And that is your lightest conference game, is Boston College. And that's not a slight at Boston College. That's how good everybody else is. You play I think that Syracuse plays, I'm not joking about this, the top 7 teams in the conference in 2025. Clemson, Duke, SMU, Pitt, Georgia Tech, North Carolina, Miami. I think that's your top 7 when the ACC is said and done in 2025. You can't get much more difficult than this. So let's go ahead and predict this thing. Remember, their over-under win total is 5.5. Their odds to win the conference are plus 8,500, and national championship odds plus 100,000. It's going to start with that game against Tennessee, and they're going to lose. I don't think they're going to get the job done there. Again, it's going to set more of a tone for Syracuse and Tennessee. They will get 2 wins. UConn and Colgate start off 2-1. Be feeling good before that road trip to Clemson. But they are going to lose to Clemson. Clemson is going to very likely dominate this game. At least at the point in the season that it is, I think they are going to be just fine. I'm taking Duke to get the win as well, leading into that road trip to SMU. Also taking SMU. Again, I mean, we're talking about 3 teams here with really solid quarterbacks. Cade Klubnik's probably a Heisman contender. Darian Mintz is a fun dark horse Heisman contender, depending on how that offense can come together. And then Kevin Jennings is even probably in the Heisman conversation out of this conference. That's 3 tough ones. You get a bye week, and then you play Eli Holstein and Pitt, who, by the way, have Des Reed. And, Syracuse gave up 5 yards per rush last year. And Pitt, Clemson, and Duke are certainly going to be able to run the ball. Pitt's going to get the win here as well. That's going to be 4 straight. They're going to be 2-6, or 2-5, sorry, at this point in the season, where they will go on the road to face Georgia Tech. This is 2 teams that I do not think have, I think are going to be in an interesting spot. And I think that at this point, this is where Syracuse kind of starts to come into their own. They're coming out of that bye week, and they lose to Pitt simply because Pitt's a better team. Syracuse will be on a level, I think, talent-wise, of the majority of the conference. It's just a matter of how quick can they figure things out and put themselves in position. I think Georgia Tech gets the win. Syracuse gets the win at Georgia Tech. That'll be a good win, a good momentum builder towards the last 5 of the season. I think they'll go ahead and get a win over North Carolina as well. And similarly, I just think that eventually things are going to start to come together, and they're going to start to build some momentum in a late run through the season. And those are 2 games that are winnable for them, and I think they can get the job done. Both are coin flip games. They could easily be sitting at 2-7 right now at this point, but I'm going to say that they'll be 4-5. They'll go to Miami and Notre Dame, and they're going to lose both those games. And it's just as simple as 2 teams that are so much, I think, better. Notre Dame certainly is going to be a team that I think is a national championship contender, even with freshman quarterback C.J. Carr. What I am expecting here is just the run games, I think, to be so much importance. Miami and Notre Dame both have 2 of the best offensive lines in the country. They're going to have 2 of the best running games in the country. And again, this is a team that could not stop the run last year. And they didn't do enough for me to sit here and say they're going to do it better. So at this point, they're sitting at 4-7 going into that game against Boston College. They will beat Boston College. 5-7, 3-5 in ACC play. This is just a simple fact of a brutal schedule. You can't do much about it. It's a brutal schedule, and it's a lot to try to figure out. Again, this is not a team that's just going to walk in and score 35 points a game. And if they do, what will their defense be able to do? Can they truly improve? I know I'm kind of beating the same drum here, but that is how important this is for this team. They're going to be interesting to watch. And feel free, let me know if you guys agree, disagree. Totally fine. I embrace all that information and all that conversation down below in the comments section. I thank you guys for tuning in and all the support over the course of this preview season. We've done so many teams at this point. I don't even know what number we're specifically on, but we have a few more days left here in the month of July, and we got BYU coming up tomorrow, which is interesting now because obviously all the rumors and stuff have officially kind of come to reality about Jake Retzlaff and what the future of his time at BYU was going to be, and now he is gone. How does BYU transition to a new quarterback and move forward this year? And then we also have Illinois, who's expected to be last year's Indiana. That's what people are saying. Last year's Indiana is Illinois this year. I don't know if that's really possible, given how talked about they are at this point. And then we have the Tennessee Volunteers, who are going to be interesting. And then my next ACC team, if you're curious, is Miami. So we're going to be ripping, and we're going to be ripping through some teams that were really good last year, and we're going to see if they can maintain or if they fall back down to reality. I thank you all for tuning in. Again, I hope you all enjoyed the video. If you did, leave a like, subscribe, comment down below. And yeah, with that said, we'll see you guys tomorrow with BYU.